Welcome, everyone. Have you ever sat through a meeting, looked at the data, and felt, kind of good about the numbers, but had absolutely zero idea what to do next?
Oh, yeah, the classic usage is up 10% moment.
Exactly. Great. But so what? Did that usage actually deliver value? Did it make the product better? Did it help the business in a meaningful way?
Hmm.
Or was it just, well, noise?
That's the trap of vanity metrics. And it's why today we're doing a deep dive into something much more fundamental. Strategic product metrics. We're moving way beyond those surface level counts.
Right. We're going to unpack a really structured six-step framework that we found. It's designed to connect your product strategy from the very beginning, right through launch and beyond, with a system of metrics that actually tells you something useful.
And the core idea here, the philosophy, is critical. You can't just treat metrics like items on a checklist. It has to be an interconnected system. Think of it like health indicators for your product.
A system. I like that.
Yeah, because the goal isn't just measuring if people clicked a button. It's about rigorously figuring out if your product created the intended value you set out to deliver in the first place.
Okay, so that's our mission today. We're breaking down this system. And what's great about this approach is it forces you, like right from the start, to think about strategy first. Metrics come second.
Exactly.
So let's get into it. We'll start with those crucial first steps, the foundation you need before you even think about collecting data. Steps 1 and 2. Setting up that strategic foundation. All right, step 1 in this framework is ground yourself in the why. Basically, defining the strategic hypothesis. The source material we looked at is really emphatic about this.
Okay.
Metrics are secondary, always. If you haven't clearly articulated the problem you're solving and how you intend to solve it, any number you track is, well, potentially meaningless.
It's sort of the gatekeeper, isn't it? It stops teams from just chasing the next shiny feature without thinking about the actual user value or, frankly, the business impact. So before anyone starts designing mock-ups or estimating engineering effort, there are 3 fundamental questions you absolutely have to answer and get agreement on.
Okay, what are they?
First, the business goal. What high-level objective is this whole effort serving? And you need to be specific here. Are we trying to boost revenue by, say, 15% in a certain market segment?
Or maybe cut churn for enterprise customers.
Exactly. Or maybe it's about efficiency, like reducing operational costs by automating a specific support task. It needs to be concrete.
Okay, business goal first. Then what?
Then you immediately connect that to the user. Question 2 is the user problem and value proposition. What specific pain point are we actually solving for someone? And what's that core aha moment?
Yeah, aha moment. You mean like when the user suddenly gets it?
Precisely. Not just general satisfaction, but that specific instant where the product delivers clear value and they think, wow, this just solved my problem, that flash of utility.
Okay, business goal, user problem, and the third.
Those 2 feed directly into the main output of the step, the strategic hypothesis. This isn't some vague mission statement. It's like a blueprint for accountability.
And it has a specific structure.
A non-negotiable structure, according to the source. It goes, we believe that by building this specific feature or product for this specific user group, we will achieve this specific business outcome. We will know we are successful when we see a measurable change in these key metrics.
We believe that, pardon? We'll know when we see. That sounds really solid. But, getting everyone, engineering, marketing, sales, product, to actually agree on that one written statement sounds challenging.
It absolutely is challenging.
And how do you stop that beautifully crafted hypothesis from just like gathering dust once the feature launches and the data starts rolling in? Especially if that outcome metric isn't immediately jumping.
That tension is exactly why getting it written down and formally agreed upon before you start is so critical. It locks everyone into the same definition of success.
So it's about pre-commitment.
Yes. If that outcome metric doesn't move like you thought it would, the team hasn't necessarily failed. What you've actually done is proven the initial hypothesis was incorrect.
Which is valuable learning, right?
Hugely valuable. It
Yeah.
forces a conversation about why your assumptions about user behavior were wrong, instead of just blaming the data or, quietly changing the goalposts after the fact. That's the strategic difference. It shifts the focus to validated learning.
Okay, that makes sense. So once you've locked down that guiding hypothesis, you move to step 2. Map the user journey and identify moments of truth.
Right. Knowing the high-level value isn't enough. You need to understand the exact steps a user takes to find, experience, and hopefully keep experiencing that value.
So you're charting the course.
Pretty much. This mapping is the bridge between that abstract hypothesis and the concrete metrics you'll eventually track. You have to look at it chronologically. Where does the journey start?
Discovery and onboarding, I guess. Finding the thing in the first few clicks.
Exactly. That first impression, the first tutorial, maybe the first 30 seconds. How easy is it for them to even find the value you promised? If tons of users drop off right here, nothing else matters much.
Okay, so nail the beginning. Then what?
Then you get to the peak, the core usage and aha moment. And this needs to be a specific, measurable action, not just using the feature.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Like for a project management tool, the aha might not just be creating a project. It might be creating a project and assigning the first task to a teammate. Something that requires a bit of effort, but delivers that clear, undeniable utility.
Got it. Specific actions.
Then, if that moment lands, the journey moves into adoption and habit formation. Is this thing actually becoming part of their regular workflow, their daily routine?
So moving beyond just trying it out once.
Right. Are they coming back? Is it becoming indispensable? That leads to the final stage, retention and advocacy. Are they sticking around long term? Are they telling their friends or colleagues? This is where you see the real business impact of forming those habits.
So if we connect this back to step one, this journey map basically highlights all the potential roadblocks.
Right.
Right, the places where users might get confused or frustrated and drop off.
Exactly. It flags the friction points, but it also highlights those critical success moments, the moments of truth.
And those points, the friction and the successes, they become the basis for our metrics later.
Precisely. If your hypothesis in step one was about improving team collaboration, then step two forces you to pinpoint the exact moment in the journey where collaboration happens, like assigning that task. You need to make sure that specific step is smooth, frictionless, and crucially measurable.
You can't optimize what you don't observe.
You got it. Step two basically operationalizes the user behavior you're trying to influence based on your strategy.
Okay, strategy set, journey mapped. Now we get to the metrics themselves with step three, selecting the balanced scorecard. The big warning here, according to the source, is avoiding local optimization.
Ah, yes. The danger of focusing so hard on improving one number that you accidentally break something else important.
Like pushing sales so hard, you tank customer satisfaction.
That's a classic example. The balanced scorecard forces you to look at a few different categories of metrics together to get a complete picture of product health. It's like driving a car.
How so?
Well, you wouldn't drive just by looking at the speedometer, right?
Right.
You need the fuel gauge, the engine temperature light, maybe the GPS map. You need the whole dashboard to make sure you're heading in the right direction safely and sustainably.
Makes sense. A balanced view. So what are the categories in this scorecard?
There are four key categories. The first one is probably the most talked about, maybe the most controversial. Category one, the North Star metric, NSM.
Ah, the North Star.
Yeah.
People sometimes dismiss this as just another vanity metric, don't they?
They do, but that's usually because it's chosen poorly. When done right, the NSM is the single most important measure of the core value you're delivering to your customers. It should ideally reflect sustainable product-led growth.
So it answers the big question, are we creating real value?
Yes. It basically asks, if we relentlessly focus on increasing this one number, will our customers genuinely be better off, and as a result, will our business ultimately succeed?
Okay. And the source mentions specific criteria for a good NSM.
3 strict criteria. Fail one, and it's probably not a true North Star. First, it has to be leading. It should predict future success, not just report on past results.
It's like revenue. Revenue often lags, right? It
Yeah.
tells you what worked last quarter.
Exactly. Revenue is almost always a lagging indicator. A good NSM is predictive. For example, increased usage of a core value-driving feature today strongly suggests better retention and maybe future revenue tomorrow.
Okay, so it needs to be leading. What's the second criterion?
Second, and this is often the toughest one for organizations to really embrace, it must be fundamentally customer-centric. It has to reflect the value the user is getting, not just the business's bottom line.
So not just monthly revenue.
Definitely not. Think about Google search. Their NSM probably isn't ad revenue. It's likely something closer to number of searches resulting in a quick, relevant click where the user doesn't immediately search again. That reflects user success. They found what they needed fast.
That's a great example. Customer value first. And the third criterion.
It has to be actionable. The product team, the engineers, designers, PMs must be able to directly influence this metric through their work on the product itself.
So something like total market share would be a bad NSM because that's affected by marketing spend, competitor actions, tons of stuff outside the product team's direct control.
Precisely. A good actionable NSM might be something like Spotify's famous example, total time spent listening. The product team can directly impact that through better recommendations, playlists, UI improvements, etc.
Or maybe for a specific feature, it could be like weekly active users who performed core value action at least 3 times.
Perfect example. That specificity ties it directly to the value prop and gives the team a clear target they can actually influence. It's surprising how often teams pick NSMs that are too vague, like just monthly active users or signups, which might be more of a marketing metric.
Right. So the NSM sets the direction. What's the next category?
Category 2 is input metrics, sometimes called driver metrics. If the NSM is your destination, these are the levers you pull on the dashboard to steer towards it.
These are the things the team works on day to day.
Exactly. They're the operational knobs you can turn. How do you pick them? You look straight back at that user journey map from step 2. You identify the key actions, the moments of truth, and also the friction points.
Ah, so they come directly from the journey.
Yep. If your NSM is Airbnb's nights booked, your input metrics aren't just people browsing. There's specific conversion rates along the path, like percentage of users who start creating a listing and actually finish it, or click-through rate on search results, or percentage of guests who message a host after viewing.
So improving those specific numbers should directly lead to an increase in the North Star.
That's the idea. They're often the leading indicators of the leading indicator, if that makes sense. They give the team concrete things to optimize.
It does. Okay. NSM for direction, input metrics for action. What's next?
Next up, category 3, and this one is crucial for sustainability. Guardrail metrics.
Guardrails.
Like,
To keep you from driving off the road.
pretty much. If you're pushing really hard on those input metrics to boost your NSM, you need to make sure you're not causing unintended negative consequences elsewhere. Guardrails monitor for that downside.
So they're preventative, asking, what could we accidentally break while trying to achieve our goal?
Exactly that. Let's say you decide to make an onboarding flow mandatory and really prominent to boost activation rates. That's an input metric. Your guardrail metric might track churn rate within the first 24 hours. Did forcing the onboarding actually drive more people away immediately?
Okay, that's a good trade-off to watch.
Yep.
What kind of metrics usually live here as guardrails?
Well, customer sentiment is a big one. Things like customer satisfaction, CSAT scores, or Net Promoter Score, NPS. If those start to tank while your NSM is going up, that's a huge red flag.
Makes sense.
Hmm.
But it's not just about feelings, right? There are harder metrics too.
Absolutely. You need operational and technical guardrails. You should monitor support ticket volume, especially tickets related to the specific feature or change you made. A spike there is a clear signal of problems.
And performance stuff.
Definitely. Core product health metrics are critical guardrails. Things like app crash rates, page load times, or API latency. If your push for a new feature makes the whole app slow or buggy, you're eroding trust and experience, even if the feature itself is kind of useful. Guardrails ensure your gains are real and sustainable, not built on hidden costs.
Okay, that's vital.
Yeah.
NSM, inputs, guardrails. What's the final category?
The fourth category brings us back to the beginning, business metrics. These are the metrics that confirm the product work is actually contributing to those high-level business goals we defined back in step 1.
So this is where the revenue and cost savings finally show up.
Yep. This is where you connect the dots between customer value and commercial outcomes. It addresses stakeholder concerns about financial viability. We're talking revenue, customer lifetime value, LTV, conversion rates, like free to paid, and that ever-important cost of customer acquisition, CAC.
And these should ideally confirm the original hypothesis.
That's the goal. If your hypothesis was building feature X for users Y will lead to outcome Z, the business metrics tell you if Z actually happened. For example, you wouldn't just look at overall LTV, you'd specifically look at the LTV of the cohort of users who adopted the new feature compared to those who didn't. That provides much clearer validation for the strategic bet you made.
Okay, so we've got this balanced scorecard with our North Star, inputs, guardrails, and business metrics, giving us the high-level picture. Step 4 introduces another layer. The HEART framework. I think this came out of Google, right?
That's right, Google Ventures specifically. HEART acts as more of a diagnostic tool, especially useful when you're analyzing a specific feature or maybe a particular part of the user journey. It helps you get a more granular, user-centric view.
So it complements the scorecard, doesn't replace it.
Exactly. Think of the scorecard as your main dashboard, and HEART as a set of diagnostic instruments you pull out to understand why certain numbers on the dashboard are moving, or maybe why they aren't moving.
And you don't necessarily need all 5 parts of heart for every single little thing.
No, probably not. But the framework is a great checklist to make sure you're considering the full spectrum of the user experience, both the quantitative and qualitative aspects.
Okay, let's break down heart. H is for.
H is for happiness. This one's about user attitudes and satisfaction. It's often seen as the most subjective category.
How do you measure happiness, though? Isn't that kind of fuzzy?
It can be, but we try to quantify it. This is where things like CSAT scores, NPS surveys, maybe App Store ratings, or even analyzing sentiment in user feedback comments come in.
Timing matters here, though, right? Asking someone if they're happy right after they successfully used a feature versus asking them randomly a week later.
Hugely important. Context is everything for happiness metrics. You want the feedback loop to be as tight as possible to the actual experience you're measuring.
Makes sense. Okay, H for happiness, E is for.
E is for engagement. This measures how involved users are with the product. How often, how deep do they go?
This feels like where a lot of teams start and maybe get stuck, just tracking logins or screen views.
Very common trap. Raw engagement numbers like daily active users, DAU, or monthly active users, MAU, are often vanity metrics unless you define active carefully. High engagement scrolling through help docs isn't the same as high engagement using the core feature.
So it needs to be tied to value.
Absolutely. We need to look at the intensity and quality of engagement. Things like sessions per user per week, key actions completed per session, or feature penetration, what percentage of active users use feature X. If you launch a collaboration tool, your engagement metrics must track collaborative actions, not just logins.
Got it. HEA.
A is for adoption. This focuses purely on new usage. Are new users finding and using the product? Are existing users finding and trying out a new feature?
So it's about the initial uptake.
Right. For a brand new product, it might be new user signups per day or downloads. For a new feature within an existing product, it's often percentage of eligible users who used the feature within the first week or two after launch.
And if adoption is low,
That's a clear signal. You might have a discovery problem, people can't find it. Or maybe an onboarding issue, they find it but don't understand it. Or potentially the feature just isn't compelling. Low adoption forces you to look at those upstream problems fast.
okay. HEAR.
R is for retention. How many users are sticking around over time? High engagement today is nice, but retention tells you if you've built something with lasting value.
This is where habit formation really shows up, right?
Exactly. This is the proof.
Yeah.
We rely heavily on cohort analysis here. You track groups of users who started at the same time and see what percentage are still active after day 1, day 7, day 30, maybe day 90.
And patterns here are really diagnostic.
Totally. A common pattern is high adoption, maybe even good day 1 retention, but then a massive drop-off by day 7. What does that tell you?
They tried it, maybe liked the initial experience, but it didn't become part of their routine. The value wasn't sticky enough.
Precisely. It signals that the feature failed to integrate into their ongoing workflow or solve a recurring problem effectively.
Okay, last one, T.
T is for task success. This gets down to the nuts and bolts of usability. Can users actually accomplish what they set out to do with the feature or product?
So did they complete the key workflow?
Yes, that's effectiveness. But task success also looks at efficiency. How easily and quickly did they do it? So we measure things like time to complete a key task, error rate during the task, or maybe the number of clicks required.
And if task success metrics are poor,
Yeah.
like it takes users 5 steps when it should really only take 2.
That directly impacts everything else. Poor task success leads to frustration, low happiness, users giving up, low engagement, and ultimately users not coming back, poor retention, even if the underlying idea for the feature was good.
So heart helps you connect the dots. Like our retention dropped because task success for this key flow is terrible, which is making users unhappy.
Exactly. It moves you beyond just seeing numbers go up or down to understanding the user experience reasons behind those movements. It's a powerful diagnostic lens.
Okay, we've done the strategic thinking, we've mapped the user's behavior, we've chosen our balanced set of metrics, maybe even overlaid hard for diagnostics. Now comes the perhaps less glamorous but absolutely critical part. Step 5, operationalize and instrument.
Yeah, this is where the rubber meets the road. The source material is crystal clear. The best metric framework in the world is useless if you can't actually track the metrics reliably and consistently.
Flying blind otherwise.
Completely. This step is all about the partnership between product and engineering, and it requires real technical diligence. If you skimp here, your data integrity is shot, maybe permanently.
So what's the first part of operationalizing?
First, you have to define explicitly. Every single metric you plan to track needs an unambiguous written definition that everyone agrees on. This means creating a metrics dictionary or a similar shared resource.
A metrics dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds simple enough, but why does defining something like active user often turn into a huge debate in companies?
Because the definition often has implications for who gets credit or whose goals are being met. Is an active user someone who just logged in? Marketing might like that definition. Or is it someone who performed a specific core value action within the last 7 days? Product and engineering probably prefer that, as it reflects real usage.
The politics of data.
Exactly. The source gives a great example of a good, unambiguous definition. An active user is a user who performed at least one core action on any platform in a 7-day period. See the specifics. Core action, any platform, 7-day period. That level of detail cuts through the ambiguity and potential arguments.
Okay, define everything clearly. Then what?
Then you have to instrument with engineering. This means translating those definitions into specific event tracking requirements. Product managers need to work closely with engineers to spec out exactly what user actions need to be logged, what properties need to be included with each event, and ensure the data actually flows correctly.
And this needs to be prioritized, right? Not just an afterthought once the feature is built.
Absolutely critical. The source stresses that implementing the necessary tracking should be considered part of the feature's definition of done. It's not done until it's measurable.
That requires discipline.
It does. And product managers need to understand that this isn't trivial work for engineering. Ensuring data quality, managing potential data latency, making sure tracking is consistent across different platforms, web, iOS, Android. It all takes real effort and needs to be planned into sprints or cycles. You can't make good decisions on bad or slow data.
Right. If your dashboard only updates once a day, your daily stand-up looking at metrics isn't very effective.
Exactly. So define, instrument, and then make it visible. The final piece of operationalizing is to set up dashboards. Key metrics, the MSM, the main inputs, the critical guardrails, need to be readily accessible and visible to the entire team, ideally in near real time, using tools like Looker, Tableau, Amplitude, or whatever you use internally.
Transparency is key.
It is. And that transparency flows directly into the final step, step 6, which is less about tech and more about culture. Create a culture of accountability and learning.
So having the metrics isn't enough. You need norms around how you actually use them.
Precisely. The metrics shouldn't be weapons or just report cards. They should be the starting point for conversations, for investigations, for learning, not the conclusion.
How do you foster that? What does the process look like?
Well, first you need a starting point. Establish a baseline for your key metrics before the change or launch. Then, based on that strategic hypothesis from step 1, you set targets. Where do you realistically expect these metrics to be in, say, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months?
Ambitious but achievable targets tied back to the strategy.
Right. And then you need a regular review cadence. This could be part of a weekly team sync, maybe a more formal monthly business review. The key is consistency.
And what happens in those reviews? Just read out the numbers.
Hopefully not. The source suggests focusing the discussion around 3 key questions. First, okay, what are the metrics actually telling us? What changed, what didn't?
Second,
Which parts of our original strategic hypothesis seem to be holding true and which parts look like they were wrong? Where did reality differ from our beliefs?
okay, connecting back to the why. And the third question.
This is crucial. The third question is, what are the underlying whys behind the numbers? This is where you absolutely must bring in qualitative data to complement the quantitative.
So if an input metric like activation rate suddenly dropped,
The number tells you what happened. But you need user interviews, session recordings, support ticket analysis, maybe usability tests to figure out why. Was it a bug? Was the UI confusing? Did a competitor launch something better? You need the story behind the numbers.
got it. The what from the metrics, the why from qualitative insights.
Exactly. A metric system without that constant search for the why is just reporting. A good system drives learning. And the ultimate output of every review shouldn't just be understanding, it should be a decision. Based on what we've learned, what's the most important thing for the team to do next? That keeps the cycle moving.
This is all great in theory. Let's try and make it really concrete by walking through the practical example provided in the source material. It was about adding a collaborative to-do list feature to an existing project management app.
Yeah, this is a good one because it shows how the whole framework ties together, starting with that strategic tension.
Okay, so applying the steps. Step 1, Strategy and hypothesis. What was their core belief?
Their hypothesis was quite specific. We believe that by allowing teams to create shared, assignable to-do lists within a project, we will increase the perceived utility of our app and improve team coordination. And here's the key outcome, leading to higher team-level retention.
Ooh, interesting. They didn't just aim for more tasks created, they aimed for team retention. That's a much higher level goal.
It is, and that strategic choice shapes everything that follows. It forces them to think about team dynamics, not just individual usage.
Okay, hypothesis set. Then step 2, mapping the user journey. What were the key moments for this feature?
They identified 4 critical moments of truth for delivering that collaborative value. 1, a user has to actually see the new lists option in the project interface, discovery.
Makes sense.
2, a user successfully creates their first shared list, initial adoption. 3, a user assigns a task from that list to a teammate. This is the core collaborative action.
The linchpin for their hypothesis about coordination.
Exactly. And 4, the teammate who received the assignment actually completes the task, closing the loop. If any of those moments, especially number 3, fails frequently, their whole strategy around coordination is likely flawed.
Okay, journey mapped. Now, step 3, selecting the metrics for their balanced scorecard. Given the focus on team retention, what did they choose for their North Star?
They couldn't use an individual metric. They needed something that reflected team-level value and habit formation, so they chose. Weekly teams actively use a collaborative list.
Weekly. Teams. Actively using. That feels right. It's leading. Active use predicts retention. It's customer-centric, teams getting value from coordination, and the product team can directly influence it by making the list feature better.
Precisely. It hits all 3 criteria. Then, for their input metrics, they focused on the key actions driving that North Star.
Like creating the first list or assigning tasks.
Exactly. They picked percentage of new users who create a list in their first week, measuring initial adoption and onboarding success. And, critically, percentage of weekly active users who assign at least one task measuring that core collaborative action. Improving the UI for list creation or task assignment would directly impact these inputs.
Okay, makes sense. What about guardrails? What could this new feature potentially break?
They were worried about adding complexity or annoying existing users who didn't need team lists, so their guardrails were user satisfaction specifically with the new list feature, probably measured via a quick in-app survey after usage, and, crucially, no increase in overall app churn rate, especially among established teams who might resist the change.
Don't want to lose old customers while chasing new ones. Good guardrail.
Ah.
And the business metric. How did they connect this to money?
Assuming this collaborative list feature was part of a paid tier, their key business metric was conversion rate of free teams upgrading to paid teams. If the North Star, teams using lists, went up, but this conversion rate didn't budge, it would suggest the feature wasn't perceived as valuable enough to pay for, challenging the monetization part of the strategy.
Right, closing the loop back to the business goal.
Oh.
Now, how did they use HEART, step 4, to diagnose this feature?
They could use HEART to drill down. For adoption A, they'd look at that percentage of users creating their first list. Pretty straightforward.
Okay.
But for engagement E, they wouldn't just count list views. They'd measure tasks created per active list per week, or assignments completed per user per week, measuring the depth and frequency of the collaborative usage.
Getting more granular.
Exactly. And for task success T, they might specifically measure the average time it takes a user to create a new list and assign their first task. If that time is really high or the error rate is significant, they know exactly where the friction is in the core workflow, even if overall adoption looks okay initially.
And they could track happiness H with that in-app survey and retention by cohorting teams who adopted the list feature versus those who didn't, and seeing if their long-term retention rates actually differed as hypothesized.
Precisely. You see how the whole framework cascades? The high-level strategy dictates the North Star. The user journey identifies the key moments for input metrics and task success checks. Guardrails protect the existing experience. Business metrics confirm the financial impact. And HEART provides the diagnostic tools to understand the why behind the numbers for that specific feature.
It really forces a structured, thoughtful approach. Metrics aren't an afterthought. They're woven into the strategy from day one. It's about measuring to learn, not just measuring to report.
That's the core idea. Commit to what success looks like before you build, instrument carefully, and then use the full system of metrics to understand reality versus expectations, allowing you to iterate and learn intelligently. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow. Okay. That was a really comprehensive look at transforming product metrics from just, numbers on a page into a powerful strategic tool.
Right.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is this idea of the system.
Absolutely. It's not about finding one magic number. Success has to be viewed holistically through that interconnected system. The North Star guiding the way, the input metrics showing you how to get there, the guardrails keeping you safe, and the business metrics confirming you reached a valuable destination.
And all of it has to be anchored by that clear, upfront strategic hypothesis.
Right. And just as importantly, the operational rigor matters immensely. Defining those metrics unambiguously in a shared dictionary, instrumenting them carefully, skimp on that, and even the best strategic framework falls apart because you can't trust the data.
Yeah, it's so easy to just celebrate when one metric pops, like revenue is up.
Hmm.
But the truly sophisticated product leader, it seems, understand that single metrics can often lie. Only the full system really tells the truth about the health of your product.
Which brings us perfectly to our final challenge for you, the listener. Let's say your team is hitting its revenue target, that business metric looks great, everyone's happy.
High fives all around.
Right. But at the same time, your guardrail metrics show a sharp, sustained increase in support tickets, specifically related to a feature you recently launched to drive that revenue. And maybe your CSAT score, another guardrail, is steadily declining. What does the system of metrics tell you in that situation? What's the real story about the long-term health of that revenue success?
It tells me we're likely achieving short-term financial gain by sacrificing the long-term health and usability of the product. We're potentially creating technical debt or user frustration debt that will come back to bite us. Even if the revenue looks good this quarter, the system is flashing warning signs about sustainability. We're not really building a healthy, viable product in the long run.
That's the power of the balanced view. True sustainable success comes from creating genuine value, and you need to watch the entire system, the good and the potentially bad, to know if you're really achieving that.
A really powerful thought to end on. Thanks so much for walking us through that framework.
My pleasure.
And thank you all for joining us for this deep dive into product metrics for strategic growth. We'll catch you on the next one.